Keith was talking about, I was writing down on my iPad stuff that you guys were saying at your tables from your greatest reward and your greatest challenge. And it's interesting, and I'm sure you've already kind of tied these together, but your greatest challenge is some of these things are said. Building relationships, building a team, establishing belief. Okay, that was your greatest challenge. Some of the stuff that you guys said as your greatest rewards were building relationships, teamwork, creating buy-in or belief. So if you look at it like that, your greatest challenges are actually leading to your greatest rewards. I mean, I'm sure you guys figured that out, but that was cool for me to write these down. That wasn't some skit I was trying to do, that was actually the stuff that you guys said. So, pretty neat. So, a lot of the stuff I'll talk about, again, these are just my experiences. So these are, being in a bunch of different places, working with a bunch of different student athletes at a bunch of different universities all over the country. These are my experiences. And there's a ton of overlap from what I'll say and what Pete has already said. So again, it's a privilege to be here. I don't get to talk to high school coaches a lot. God, I'm glad I don't have to deal with parents. We made that pretty clear, So that's one realm I don't really have to worry about, but it's great to hear you guys talk, because I really think you get it. I learned a lot this morning already, and we still got another few hours. We get to talk to your student athletes later. So I don't want this to be a lecture per se. Again, I'm going to give you the concepts and some ideas of stuff that we've done, but I'll pose some questions to you, and hopefully we can generate some discussion and kind of go from there. So, how do you define a culture within your program? Okay, let's throw out some answers. Somebody please raise your hand, or don't raise your hand and say, what's your culture? Again, we have a big culture here. What you're doing with Bear Lake area schools, you probably have a culture that's being implemented by Tim. Then within you have subcultures within all your different teams. So, what are those? Yeah.
We try to encourage the kids to define themselves as individuals while also understanding that their role within the community as a whole is something else that they can take pride in.
Yeah, great. Anything else?
Yeah. Try to make sure every kid knows they have a role. Every kid's role might be different, but everybody's got a very important role to play.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure. You just talked about overachieving. People want to overachieve.
Absolutely. Anything else? Yeah.
I come to think that culture is what exists if we remove ourselves as coaches. How our
For sure.
will run without feeling as though they've been directed to run.
Absolutely. What they're going to do when you're not watching anymore, so to speak. All great answers. And I don't think I'm not giving you a definition per se, but this is what the dictionary defines it as, right? The beliefs or customs of a group or place. So if we relate that to the workplace, it's a way of thinking or behaving. It's the values of an organization. So there's some great values up here. Right? What are your values? What's important to you? Right? This is a great quote from Hermann. He said it not too long ago, but it's what we believe, how we behave, and the experience that our behavior produces for each other. So again, there's no clear-cut definition. Everyone's going to define it a little bit differently, but it's important for you as a coach to every decision that you make regarding your program to be based around your culture, because that's how you build it, that's how you establish it. So I'm a huge quote guy. I mean, me and Pete kind of talk about, hey, you see this quote, you see this quote. I send stuff to my dad all the time, but this is a great one, Bill Walsh. I won't read it word for word, but you guys can read that. But it precedes everything. Your culture is what it's all about. You can't win, you can't have anything sustainable, right, unless there are winners before that. So that really sums it up for me. So who's responsible for this, right? Who goes about building the culture? You guys are, okay? Ultimately, we talk about, hey, there's an athletic or activities department, culture, but then all those little subcultures that you guys are coaching in, you guys are responsible for creating and developing that. So everything you say, everything you do, even more importantly, is going to create that culture for that student athlete. Okay? Who's responsible for upholding the values of that? And again, your culture, and we'll talk about this, but it's got to be built on values. It can't be built on goals. Right? It needs to be built on values. But every single member involved. So, that's student athletes, obviously. That's coaches, assistant coaches. I mean, everyone who's touching your program. You have groundskeepers, people that keep your field. You have janitors, people that clean up your locker room, all that stuff. They need to know what your culture is all about because everyone's responsible for upholding it. All right, you, the leader, you design it, but everybody else is responsible for upholding it. You must have a clear vision of what you want. Make sure your values are well represented. Okay, your values are these type of things. What's important to you? We're not talking about being fast and being tough, things like that. We're talking about things that you value. Okay, they must be, all your decisions need to be guided by your values. All right, these are important concepts. So what are your core values? What's important to you? I'll talk to you in a little bit about how we've built our culture at Boise State within our sports performance program, and they're built off core values that I thought were really important to me. All right, don't confuse goals with values. Our culture should be, we're here to win. Okay, that should be a byproduct of the culture that you set up and how you run things. But your goal aren't your values. Okay, your values again are what's important to you, and they lead you in everything every decision that you make. We already stated this a little bit, but your goals cannot be more important than your values. All right, if they are, you'll live and work from your goals instead of your values. And pretty soon, somewhere down the line, to accomplish that goal, you're probably going to compromise one of your values, or your integrity, or your character. All right, so make sure you're working from a set of values rather than a set of goals. I'll talk to your student athletes later. We're talking about process versus outcome, and really the whole process is about becoming a better person. So at the end, we talk about better people make better bears. All right, so it's the same thing with you guys. So how do you do this? What do you build it on? Belief. Okay, believe in what you value. Right? If compassion and integrity and respect are important to you, then believe in those things. All right. When we talked a little bit about parents, when parents are all about winning and playing time, okay, you got to believe in what's important to you to stay strong in times where you need some courage, and we'll talk about that. But believe in change if change is required. All right. Everywhere I've been, talked about this a little bit over the weekend, but I've always been tasked with having to come in and kind of build a program or clean it up. It hasn't been a great situation before. All right, so that's easy. There's a lot of change involved. All right, change is hard. All right, and this is the phrase we got all the time when we try to do stuff different. Well, this is the way we've always done it. Okay, and most dangerous phrase in the English language. All right, if there's change, you need to believe in it. Okay? You have to be self-disciplined. All right? That dog's got great self-discipline not to go eat those cookies right there. All right? So you got to be disciplined. We talked, Pete had a slide of, leaders, and it talked about like physically fit people, U.S. military people, what are the common characteristics, or those are people that fall in line. I think all those people have self-discipline. Absolutely. Okay? And it takes a lot of self-discipline to stay on the path when you're trying to build this thing when people want to knock you off. All right? Greatness not a function of circumstances. It's a function of choice and discipline. You must walk the talk. All right? You are going to be the mirror, all right, for everything that your student athletes are doing. So if you're asking and you're telling them to do these things, they're hearing the message, okay, but they're really seeing it. So what are you doing? Are you self-disciplined? Are you following all the same things that you're asking your athletes to do? You need to be. Okay, because you're the mirror. As a coach, as a leader, you're always on. They're going to do what they see. Okay, you got to have some courage, right? Change is going to be hard. If you need to make a change. Right? And we're not talking some big, huge, grand scheme of things change, but maybe little changes here or there, and those can be hard too. All right, so you got to have some courage because people are going to be resistant, especially parents. We talked about it already. When they come up through, I work with basketball a lot, so I just love the AAU culture. If you can sense the sarcasm in my voice, But they come up through one thing in the AAU culture, and they have an AAU coach, and they have a high school coach, and all these different people tell them how great they are, and then we get them, and we kind of got to tell them how crappy they are right now, And then we'll build them up to be great, But that's hard. Okay, a lot of people are resistant to that because they've been told for so long, especially maybe our generation, how great they are. All right, and we're more about how great we are. Okay, not you, but we. All right. Will you have the courage to hold strong to your beliefs in the face of resistance and criticism, because you're going to get criticized. As coaches, you open yourselves up for that. That's fine. All right? Can you handle that? Do you have the courage to hold on to that? Do you have some appreciation? Okay, nobody does this thing by themselves. It's definitely a we thing over a me thing. All right. So you gotta appreciate people, and you really need to appreciate the process. We'll talk to your kids later today about the process and what that involves. And we kind of label it as question everything, define, seek answers. Question everything, even if that brings you back to your original answer, because it's the search and it's the process where you develop and actually become a better person. Okay? And that's what we're after, especially as high school coaches. I think you're trying to make a better person, right? Through the vehicle of athletics, which everyone out here obviously loves their sport, loves athletics, right? And we're using that vehicle to teach life lessons to create better people. Again, so we think nobody does this. Nobody builds a culture by themselves. So you got to be an optimist. My wife is she's a PhD biochemist, way smarter than me. This is her favorite slide. We talk about being optimistic, glass half full, or being a pessimist, glass half empty. Well, the glass is always full, right? Because the other part is air, right? So that's got to be your mindset. Your outlook. Be positive. Attitude to choice. Right? We already talked about attitude a little bit, and we'll talk to your kids about it a lot. But I mean, that's the one thing you always have control over, is your attitude. Right? So be positive. Have a great attitude. Because if you want that from your student athletes, which I'm assuming you do, then you got to show it. Again, you got to be the mirror. Patience, persistence, and perseverance. Okay, none of this stuff happens overnight. It's not easy. Okay, again, we talked about. Again, I took your words from your greatest challenges and matched them up with your greatest rewards. All right, you guys said it. Your greatest challenges are leading to your greatest rewards. So this stuff's not easy. So this is from a book. It's called Water the Bamboo. I don't know if anybody's read it. Okay, but these are giant timber bamboos, and they grow 90 feet in 60 days in the rainforests in South America. Okay, but from the time that seed's planted to when they actually start growing, it takes 3 years. All right, they don't see any growth. Okay, but these farmers are out there, and they tend the soil, and they harvest things. Okay, but they don't see anything for 3 years, and then in the span of 60 days, they grow 90 feet. So we use this to talk to our kids a lot. Boise State has a fairly decent brand. Everything. It's a big school, but we're a developmental school. Right? We're not a Big 10, Pac-12 type school. So we get kids in that we have to develop from day one, physically, mentally, emotionally, all those things. Okay, and it's those kids that come in and they don't see work right. They don't see the result right away, but they keep working. And we as coaches, we keep coaching. That kid keeps working. And by the time they're a junior, redshirt sophomore, maybe a senior, boom, they're seeing success. But it's that belief in the process that we talked about that allows that to happen. Because we believed, we had some courage, right? And we went through that whole process of trying to get them better. So, what are some major hurdles in trying to establish a culture? What things have you guys ran into? Okay, here's what we want to do. This has been our biggest hurdle. And we've kind of already talked about them with parents and whatnot, but throw out a couple of hurdles.
Other schools they can choose to go to, they leave your area. So you're losing maybe your top end guys.
Okay.
They're going someplace else.
Yeah, I would imagine that'd be a big hurdle for sure. Anything else?
People don't want that culture you're talking about. They want a different culture. They want a culture that's based on older. I deserve it. I put the time in. I deserve it. At least in basketball, it's like that. And I think a couple other team sports, it's just.
Yeah, you guys are in a unique
We
situation.
deserve something because we grew up in White Bear. We deserve something.
Yeah.
That people want things they don't deserve. And taking that on is really hard because.
I agree with you, for sure. I mean, you guys are in a unique situation because we get the luxury of picking who we want to come and play for us and compete for us. You guys don't necessarily get that all the time, so that's just another challenge. That probably is tough, but probably again in the long run is rewarding too, for sure. Anybody else on that one?
Expectation in the academic area,
What do you mean?
that there's an expectation that we want them to develop as a full person, that this is part of them, developing them, and sometimes they think they can just sort of skate by and to try and get to have them and their parents understand that, you know what, there's a million players just like your son or daughter. We want them, no one can ever take your education away. You gotta have the education first.
Absolutely.
And a lot of parents struggle with that when Johnny or Susie are the best players at age 12.
Mm-hmm. Anyone want to add anything to it? Okay, I mean, I think those are great answers. Again, I'm not up here standing saying you're right, you're wrong. You know, I think the only answer is maybe there aren't any answers. You know, we're trying to find, we're thinking critically about ways we can all get better. So I think that's great stuff. Why is it so difficult? Again, a lot of these tie in, but why do people think change is so hard?
Because you have to be able to be willing to do it even when you don't see an immediate result.
Yeah.
That's the time.
Yeah, it's like the bamboo. Who can keep doing something over and over every day for 30 years with the hope that in 3